The quiet arrives with no warning, settling across the ravine as though the day has drawn a single breath and simply forgotten to let it go. Heat bears down on the parched earth, and the cicadas that had moments ago filled the air fall into silence. Beneath the thin shade of an acacia, a male lion lies on his flank, his chest rising and falling in quick, shallow movements. Dust clings to the fur along his side. One hind leg is pulled back at a strange angle, muscles taut and tight, the paw hovering just above the ground. A thin strand of wire disappears into the grass, almost invisible, pulled taut where it sinks into flesh. Time itself seems to stretch around him. His tail flicks once, a slow and hesitant motion that stirs the dirt, then stops. The lion's eyes open only halfway, pale gold dulled by exhaustion. Each breath comes shallow, ribs pressing visibly with the effort. The land keeps its distance, as if even the wind has learned to step carefully here. High above, a vulture drifts in patient circles, tracing wide loops that cast fleeting shadows across the ravine floor. The snare has done its work without a sound. It tightened with every movement, answering only to instinct, indifferent to the strength of the creature it held. Blood has dried dark against the fur along the wire, and the flesh surrounding it has swollen. When the lion shifts even slightly, a low sound escapes him. Not a roar, but a strained exhale, a vibration felt more than heard. He stills again, saving what little strength remains. Nearby, the grasses lean toward him, their seed heads trembling in the faintest breeze. Ants move across the cracked ground, navigating around his massive paw as though it were nothing more than a fallen log. The ravine itself, normally a corridor of constant movement, feels suspended. Zebra tracks and the delicate prints of antelope mark the dust. All signs of lives that carried on while he came to a stop here. Farther off, the pride is absent. No answering calls drift across the plain. Whether they moved on with the morning or were driven away by the long silence is impossible to know. The lion lifts his head once, only an inch or two, as though listening for something remembered. It falls back heavily, sending a small puff of dust into the air. His breathing quickens for a moment, then slows again, shallow, deliberate, careful. The sun climbs higher, bleaching color from the land. Heat gathers and shimmers, blurring the edges of the world. Flies gather around the wound, despite the twitch of his skin. Persistent. Unafraid. The lion's ears flick forward and back, answering sounds that barely exist. Survival has narrowed to the simple rhythm of breath. The management of pain. The waiting. At the edge of the ravine, a faint movement breaks the stillness. Shapes slowly resolve into figures, their outlines softened by distance. Rangers approach on foot, stopping often, reading the ground, measuring the lion's state before closing the space between them. Their voices are low, barely audible. "Easy now," one murmurs. More habit than command, words meant to keep the moment gentle. The lion's eyes track the movement, widening slightly. His body tenses, then settles, caught somewhere between fear and exhaustion. He does not rise. He cannot. The wire holds him as firmly as the earth beneath him. One ranger kneels, careful to stay outside the reach of those paws, and exhales slowly. "You're almost there," another says, a quiet promise offered without certainty. The ravine listens. A breeze finally moves through the grass, lifting dust and cooling the air for just a moment. Somewhere beyond the rise, the distant lowing of cattle drifts across the plain, a reminder of the unseen forces that brought the wire here. As the sun begins its slow descent, light softens along the edges of the land, and the lion's tail stirs again, tracing a faint line in the dust that catches the last warmth of the day. The space between them closes slowly, not in distance, but in intention. The conservation worker pauses several times as he approaches, letting the land settle again after each step. His boots press into the dust without urgency, his posture loose, his hands visible and empty. He does not look directly at the lion at first. Instead, he watches the ground, the way the grass bends, the line of the wire disappearing into the soil. Patience learned over years guides every small decision. The lion's head lifts just enough to follow the movement. His eyes remain dull, clouded by fatigue, but they are open, and aware. There is no attempt to rise, no gathering of strength for defense. The great body stays where it is, ribs moving shallowly beneath tawny fur. When the worker pauses, the lion pauses too, as though both are waiting for the other to make a mistake that never comes. Heat lingers in the air, heavy but no longer sharp. The afternoon has begun to soften, shadows stretching thin across the ravine. Flies drift lazily and settle again near the wound. The lion flicks an ear, then stills. His breathing catches once, then resumes its uneven rhythm. Pain shows itself not in sound, but in the tension of muscle, in the way the trapped leg is held away from the ground as though even the earth cannot be trusted with it. The worker lowers himself to one knee at a careful distance. He does not reach for the wire yet. He studies the angle of the snare, the swelling, the way the lion's weight has shifted to avoid pressure. Every movement is deliberate, reduced to the slow mechanics of safety and respect. Rushing would bring noise, fear, resistance. There is time, or at least the illusion of it, and that illusion matters. A soft breath leaves the lion, more a release than a sound. His eyes narrow, not in threat, but in the effort of staying conscious. The worker lifts his gaze now, meeting the animal's eyes without challenge. There is nothing to prove here. Only an acknowledgement of shared space, fragile and temporary. "It's okay," he says quietly, the words barely disturbing the air. The lion's tail moves once, a tired sweep that brushes the dust and comes to rest again. The gesture is small, but it shifts something unseen. The worker inches closer, stopping when the lion's ears flick back. He waits until they ease forward again. This becomes their language. Movement and pause. Advance and stillness. Each action weighed against the lion's response. Around them, the savanna resumes its low rhythms. Insects crawl. Grass whispers against itself. A distant bird lifts and settles again. Life continues at its edges, indifferent, yet present. The worker reaches out at last, not toward the lion, but toward the wire anchored in the earth. His fingers test its tension, gentle, exploratory. The lion does not pull away. He cannot. Instead, his breathing deepens slightly, as if surrendering to the moment rather than fighting it. Pain has narrowed the lion's world to sensations, pressure, heat, the pull of metal against flesh. Trust, if it exists at all, is not a thought, but a state of exhaustion where resistance costs more than stillness. The worker understands this. He keeps his movements slow, his body low, his presence steady. As the sun slides lower, the light softens across the ravine, turning dust to gold. The lion's eyes blink once, then remain open, fixed on the quiet figure beside him. Between them, nothing dramatic passes, only the careful shaping of a fragile calm, held together by patience and the shared stillness of a day easing toward evening. The wire gives way without sound, released inch by inch as the tension is eased from it. The conservation worker works slowly, fingers careful as they lift the metal away from swollen flesh. Where the snare had disappeared into grass, it now lies exposed, thin and ordinary, stripped of its power. Beneath it, the lion's leg shows the cost of stillness. Deep grooves pressed into skin darkened with old blood. The muscle beneath, tight and trembling, but intact. The lion exhales, a long breath that shudders through his frame. It is not relief in any simple sense, but the sudden absence of pressure that has been constant for days. His body reacts before his mind can. The trapped leg lowers an inch, then stops. The muscles quiver, uncertain, as if testing a memory long unused. He does not rise. He does not pull away. He stays grounded, anchored by exhaustion and the unfamiliar freedom of movement. The worker shifts back, creating space immediately. He does not celebrate the release. He watches instead, reading the lion's posture, the way weight is redistributed, the subtle tremors passing through a body built for power but weakened by restraint. This moment, he knows, is not an ending. It is a threshold. The lion's ears tilt forward, catching distant sounds. A bird lifts from the grass. Wind moves along the ravine wall. These small details seem to reach him one by one, as though his awareness is widening again after being narrowed to pain. He lifts his head higher now, neck muscles straining, and holds it there. His eyes are clearer, still dull with fatigue, but sharpened by alertness. He looks not at the worker, but beyond him toward the open land. Blood seeps slowly from the wound as circulation returns, dark against tawny fur. The worker notes it, files it away, knowing that what he sees now will guide what happens next. The damage is serious but not fatal. Infection is a risk. Weakness will linger. Survival will depend on time, distance, and the lion's own resilience. Easy, the worker murmurs, barely audible, more breath than word. The lion's tail moves again, slower than before, tracing a shallow curve in the dust. He shifts his body, drawing his front paws closer beneath him. The motion is careful, deliberate, as if each muscle must be reminded of its role. When he places weight on the freed leg, it buckles slightly, then steadies. A low sound vibrates in his chest, brief and controlled, an acknowledgement of pain rather than a protest. The savanna seems to hold its breath with him. Light filters through thinning clouds, softening the edges of the ravine. Dust motes drift in the air, catching gold and fading again. The worker remains still, hands resting on his knees, allowing the lion to take the time he needs. Any sudden movement now could fracture the fragile balance forming here. The lion does not flee. Instinct suggests distance, escape, but his body is not ready to obey. Instead, he remains where he is, gathering himself. He lowers his head, touches his nose briefly to the ground, then lifts it again. The simple act appears to anchor him, a way of orienting himself to a body that feels altered, heavier, less certain. Minutes pass without clear measure. The worker rises slowly, stepping back, increasing the space between them. The lion watches, eyes following, but calm. There is no charge, no warning display. Only attention, steady and contained. As the sun dips closer to the horizon, shadows stretch across the ravine floor, cooling the earth. The lion settles into a crouch, breathing deeper now, slower. Release has come, but certainty has not. Between freedom and flight lies this suspended moment where the land waits, the light softens, and a wounded lion listens to his own body, learning again how to stand within it. He moves away from the ravine slowly, each step measured, the freed leg placed with care before bearing weight. Dust lifts beneath his paws and settles again, marking the path of a body relearning itself. The bush ahead offers shadow and distance, the familiar promise of cover. For a moment, it seems certain he will take it, disappear into grass and thorn, the way lions have always done when pain no longer binds them. Then he stops. The pause is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it shifts the air between them. The lion turns his head back once, not sharply, not in alarm. His gaze settles on the quiet figure standing where the wire had been moments before. The look holds no challenge. It carries no question. It is simply there, steady and present, the way his breathing has become. Instead of continuing on, he angles away from the densest brush and lowers himself beneath a sparse cluster of shrubs a short distance off. The ground there is open, sun-warmed, visible from where the worker stands. The lion eases down carefully, folding his legs beneath him. When the injured one touches the earth, his body tightens briefly, then relaxes as the weight settles. He remains upright, chest lifted, head high enough to see the horizon. The choice feels deliberate. He has not sought concealment. He has not claimed distance. He rests where he can be seen. The worker does not move closer. He stays where he is, respecting the space now clearly defined. He lowers himself to sit, slow and unthreatening, letting the moment unfold without interference. The lion's ears flick once toward him, then forward again, tracking the quiet language of the land. Wind moves through dry leaves, carrying the scent of dust and old grass. Somewhere beyond the rise, insects begin their evening rhythm. The lion's breathing is deeper now, fuller, the shallow strain replaced by something closer to normal. His flank rises and falls with steady intention. Fatigue still hangs heavy in his posture, but it is no longer edged with panic. Pain exists, contained within the body rather than radiating outward. He licks his nose once, a small grounding motion, then stills again. Light slides lower, stretching shadows until they soften into one another. The ravine cools, releasing the heat it held through the day. The worker watches without staring, aware that presence alone is enough. There is nothing left to do here that would not risk breaking the quiet balance that has formed. It's all right, he says softly, not to guide, not to reassure, but to acknowledge what already is. The lion does not react outwardly. His tail lies still against the dust. His gaze remains forward, unfocused yet aware, taking in movement at the edges of vision rather than fixing on any one thing. In this posture, he looks less like a creature recovering and more like one choosing rest, claiming a pause that belongs to him alone. Minutes stretch without measure. The shared silence does not feel empty. It holds weight, shaped by the absence of urgency, by restraint on both sides. No bond is formed, no meaning assigned. Yet something settles into place, an understanding carried not by thought but by coexistence. As the sun nears the horizon, the sky dims to softer hues, and the land exhales into evening. The lion lowers his head slightly, eyes half closing, not sleeping, simply resting within his own presence. Grass whispers as the breeze shifts. A distant herd moves somewhere beyond sight, their sound faint and unremarkable. The worker rises at last, steps back once more, and turns away without haste. Behind him, the lion remains where he is, calm and grounded, framed by lengthening shadows. The day releases its hold gently, and the silence that follows feels complete, carrying with it a moment that needs no words to endure. Evening arrives without edges, softening the land one color at a time. The heat loosens its grip, and the air begins to move more freely across the ravine. The lion shifts beneath the shrubs, the change in temperature drawing him back into motion. His head lifts first, eyes opening fully now, alert to the subtle movements that signal the approach of night. He gathers himself slowly. Front legs straighten, muscles tightening and releasing as they take on weight again. When he rises, the injured leg hesitates for only a moment before finding the ground. There is stiffness and unevenness to the step, but there is also strength, returning quietly, without display. Each movement carries intention. He pauses once, breath steady, then takes another step, and another. The rhythm beginning to smooth itself out. The grass ahead waits tall and pale in the fading light. It sways gently, catching the last warmth of the day. The lion angles toward it, no longer watching behind him. His focus has shifted forward, drawn by instinct and the pull of familiar cover. The distance he creates is gradual, respectful of his own limits. Dust rises briefly beneath his paws and settles again, leaving only faint impressions that fade as the air cools. The humans remain where they are, stepping back in unspoken agreement. There is no need to follow. No reason to witness more than this. Their work has ended, not with resolution, but with release. They stand quietly, allowing the wild to close in again without interruption. The space between them and the lion widens, filled by grass, shadow, and the low sounds of evening. The lion reaches the edge of the tall grass and stops once more, not turning this time, but standing still as if listening to the land ahead. A breeze moves through the stalks, parting them just enough to receive him. He steps forward and the grass folds around his body, first at the legs, then along the flank, until only the line of his back remains visible. Another step, and even that disappears, swallowed gently by the living landscape. What remains behind is quiet. The ravine settles into itself, free of tension, holding only the ordinary marks of passage, disturbed earth, bent grass, cooling stone. The humans breathe out, not in relief exactly, but in acceptance. There is no triumph here, no sense of victory over circumstance. Only the knowledge that a life has been returned to its own path, altered, but intact. As the sky deepens, the colors thin to amber and gray. Insects rise and fall in soft patterns. Somewhere beyond the grass, unseen, the lion moves on. Each step carrying him farther from pain and closer to the rhythms that will shape his days ahead. His presence lingers, not as a memory of drama, but as a quiet continuity, part of the land once more. the dust settles completely. Wind moves through the ravine, smoothing the last signs of disturbance. Tall grass whispers in overlapping waves, and the light fades until the horizon glows low and warm. In that closing hush, gratitude exists without form or expression, carried forward in the simple fact that the wild continues uninterrupted as the sun slips away and night takes its place.